I'm going to try and take you back to Gaza right now, where there was reports of an explosion. Tareq Abu Azzoum is there. And Tareq, we understand that happened quite close to where you and our team are working. Talk us through what happened.
Yes, Sammy, that was completely too close to our location in Rafah, this area that is supposed to be as a safe zone. We have been sitting, everyone was walking peacefully. Suddenly, a very loud sound of explosion took place as we have heard the sound of the Israeli missile while it was heading toward its target, where it had destroyed a residential building just a few away from us, few meters, and where a number of residents have been killed and others have been wounded. And we have get an access inside the hospital as the victims and the injuries have been turning up to the hospital. I've seen a very young Palestinian girl being injured, severely injured, and another woman which her face was fully covered with the blood, and others who had been completely, let's say, filled with the blankets just to be away from documenting due to the fact that they have been killed by the Israeli airstrike. Now, this area is very densely populated that this strike had been carried out in, where every single house in Rafah, just only to know that it's very densely populated, full of evacuees as well. Now, this is not only the first attack that had been carried out in the vicinity of Kuwaiti Hospital, but previously a very similar attack took place at the background of our reporting right now, where a residential building has been flattened alongside with another agricultural land. Now, as you can clearly hear at the background, that the ambulances are now moving to the location of targeting to evacuate more victims from under the rubble as the rescue operations continue. But the first injuries and victims had been transported to the hospital by the civilians in the areas who had rushed to the location of the targeting to evacuate them, informing the Palestinian Ministry of Health about the exact location. And of course, this targeting will rise the number of the death toll and the also casualties, especially that the majority of them, as we have seen, are civilians, young children and women as well.
And Tareq, just to be clear, this is not an area you've just in the last few minutes or hours moved to. This is an area you've been reporting from frequently. I understand it's close to a hospital, mosques, civilian buildings and so on, right?
Yes, Sammy, this is a very busy area, where in this area we have the Kuwaiti Hospital and a mosque adjacent to it, as well as there are different United Nations run shelters in the area where evacuees come here for some water filling process that is very close to the hospital. And these attacks continue, as now I'm receiving more confirmation by our sources on the ground that the number of Palestinians being killed by this airstrike has risen to 7, which means that more death toll has been recorded within this attack. Now, as we have been also seeing throughout the background right now, that Palestinians have been gathering around the hospital just to see if they're one of the beloved ones have been killed or injured in this airstrike, as more evacuation waves had been started to reach Rafah in the south, where in every single land, in every single house of houses in Rafah, there are a lot of people who are taking shelter on their relatives' houses just to be safe, as Israeli forces had ordered them before to remain inside. Now, this is considered to be a rush hour, and we have right now been hearing some sounds of people who are bringing the injured people and the victims right now. And those people right now are bringing an elderly person held by a number of residents to Kuwaiti Hospital. Those people have volunteered to bring them amid the increased number of injured people and also victims. Now, the rescue of efforts have been made by residents and by the Palestinian Ministry is increasing. And right now, a man bringing a young girl being injured right now. It's a very young girl to the Kuwaiti Hospital to receive treatment. Right now, what we can see is that the majority of the victims and injured people are young children, girls and women, amid more intensifying of the rates of the Israeli military attacks in Rafah, this area that is supposed to be a safe zone for 2.3 million Palestinians amid ongoing Israeli bombing across the territory.
And Tareq, this isn't the first time you've been close to an explosion. Just take us through what life is like, not only for journalists, but for people.
Yes, Sami. In fact, what we have seen during this attack, that life in Rafah had completely turned upside down with the blink of an eye, where everything was going well, was going normal. There is no any kind of bombardment. But we have observed a number of Israeli military surveillance drones hovering in the sky of the Gaza Strip. And right now we have more victims. It seems that it's a young woman had been now killed or injured and taken to the hospital to a treatment and for medical check. And these kinds of attacks continue, but what we have clearly observed before the time of the attack, that there are a lot of surveillance drones on the sky of Rafah, in particular in the area that we are in. Just make a kind of complete military check, then they have now targeted a residential building that contains dozens of Palestinians who have been living peacefully. And right now, with the destruction of this house, the situation had become much more exacerbated, as more injuries right now are turning up and arriving to Kuwaiti Hospital throughout the help of civilians in Rafah.
All right, thanks so much, Tareq Abu Azzoum.